Hey guys, welcome to the Whole Lotta Jesus podcast. This is where we talk all about testimonies. I'm excited for this guest. This is my family. Y'all say hey.
Hey.
How y'all doing?
Wonderful.
Good. Okay. As you can tell, we're in a different spot than normal. It's Memorial Weekend when we're recording this, and so we're at the lake. If you see us sunburnt, that's why.
Why everybody look at me?
Because you're a little sunburned. But today I'm excited because y'all are going to hear my parents' story, really how they overcame marriage and just the struggles that happen in marriage. And so I'm excited for us to dive in. We've been waiting a long time for them to share this, and I really feel like it's going to help a lot of people and a lot of marriages, especially within the church. Before we start, I do want to say that this might be a sensitive topic, and so just be aware that we might bring up some traumatic discussions. This is going to be a deep conversation, and so I just want y'all to be aware that we're going to kind of go deeper and just to pace yourself as you listen to this. Okay, so why don't y'all share like how y'all met, how long y'all have been married, kind of our journey of moving, and what life was like paint the picture of what your marriage was like beforehand, how you were raised, if you want to bring up like were you raised in church, just like the atmosphere of y'all's marriage, y'all's mindset towards marriage, what were you told about marriage. Just share all of that. Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, honey.
So, yes, I was raised moving all over the country, as y'all know, but we were raised going to church. My parents have now been, your mammy and pappy have been married for 50 years, so marriage is a big deal on this side of the family. What else did you ask?
Like, when did y'all get married?
Okay, so we got married August 16th of 1997.
How old were y'all?
I was 19.
21.
21. Okay. So y'all graduated high school.
Yes.
Did you graduate college yet? No, you were in college. Okay. And Dad, you were working.
Correct.
Okay. Y'all lived in like a smaller town, El Dorado. It wasn't huge.
Right. 18,000 people.
Yeah, probably right.
Yeah,
And
when we got married.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Y'all both grew up in church.
Yes.
So marriage was a lifetime commitment. You didn't really see divorce from both of y'all's sides. Both grandparents are married.
No. Yes. 50 years both sides.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. Anything else, Dad, you want to share?
No, I mean, family was everything. In the house that I grew up in, I mean, the family was extremely close. I had two loving parents that, adored each other, and I've seen them, fight through some of the tough times. But I mean, family was everything. Divorce wasn't an option. It was never brought up. We saw the tragedy of divorce in our family from distant family, and the impact that it had on obviously the husband and the wife and the kids. But no, it was committed. Grew up in church. Every time the doors were open, I was in church.
And Mom moved around, but Dad, y'all kind of stayed planted in Arkansas.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in El Dorado, Arkansas.
So then y'all had us, and y'all started having kids a couple years after you were married. We lived in Arkansas I was 9, so
Maverick was 7.
You were
turning 7.
Yeah.
7, and we started our journey of moving around. And like, how did that play a toll in y'all's marriage? Like, good and bad. What was the pros and cons?
Well, I mean, I think the bad part of the moving around, it was my job that took us everywhere that we went. So I would obviously leave first, and then Mom would be left dealing with, basically picking up the pieces, if you will, for you guys to come join us. So there was a lot of burden left on her to deal with, the everyday thing, plus make sure the house was ready to be sold, take care of the moving people, all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, depending, there were some times where, you know, it was 2, maybe 3 months that we were apart. So as you're living a life apart, you start getting in your own routines. And then when you try to bring that back together, it creates, you know, challenges.
I would say on the positive part, I've always said God has a sense of humor. You know, I was raised moving around a lot. So when the very first time we had to move, Daddy was born and raised in El Dorado, had never stepped foot or left as far as living. So because of the way I was raised, I kind of knew, you know, how to do step 1, 2, 3. So that was a positive, I guess.
Side of it. You could help him.
I could help him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like for Maverick and I, like, when we would move places, because we didn't move just once, we moved like 3 or 4 times. And when we would move places, it brought us closer together because that's all you knew. Like, you didn't know anybody. So if you wanted to play with a friend, all you had was your sibling.
That's right.
And so I feel like it brought us, as a family, too, closer together because you're kind of depending on one another for support. And we didn't just move towns or houses. We moved states.
Yeah.
Like, when I tell people we moved, it was like, I just remember, Dad, that map. And you were like, we live here, and we're moving all the way up here. And it was a long all the way up there.
And I also think it prepared you guys to be able to, you know, walk into a room or a new situation and be able to communicate with people. And not, you know, shy away from new experiences or people.
Yeah, that's good. So we first moved to Iowa. We lived there for a few years. We moved to Tennessee. We lived there for a couple years. And then we moved to Texas. And we lived in West Texas. And no trees. Wind blows all the time. No rain. Yeah, it's pretty interesting dynamic. I was a freshman. You started 6th grade. I don't remember. Where were you working at first? Or did you? You didn't work at first? Okay. Dad, you worked in a town like 20 minutes away?
Yep.
Okay. It was a small town, like 2,500 people. Smallest town we probably ever lived in. Tiny town. And so we started school. Life was good. Small towns have their pros and cons. There were only 2 houses for sale.
Yeah.
When we moved there.
That was a con, but
yes.
The one that smelled like cats, and then the one we bought.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Okay, so we lived there for a few years. Could y'all tell, like, at what point do you think your marriage started getting a little,
I don't think
shaky? Or do you, like...
I don't, if you ask, I mean...
I don't think you recognize
You don't,
that,
yeah.
that it's so subtle. It happened so slowly, you know, that I don't think you recognize a point where you can go back and say it was this point. Would
I
you
don't
agree?
know. Right? No. I mean, yes, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, if you're asking me, I thought my marriage was rock solid up until the moment. Obviously, that was not the case, but that's what I thought.
Yeah. So, what do y'all feel like are some issues in marriage that y'all saw in hindsight when you look back and you think about what kind of led up to the affair? Like, what do you think are key things that a lot of marriages, and use y'all's personal examples, but are like common to just like have your priorities a little off and shifted because of life?
Kids is a big one. Like kids, the focus being on your children. You guys were, when we moved, were at an age of freshman and going into middle school, and that's a very busy time of life. It was all about you guys. and my focus wasn't on our marriage. So, you know, getting up every day, making sure you guys had everything you needed from 6 o'clock in the morning until you got home at sometimes 10 o'clock at night. I mean, that's where the focus was.
And I feel like with kids, I mean, we were busy all the time. Like, we had sports and activities and events all the time. So, I mean, yeah, I can see.
It can start younger, too, the focus just being right, you know, on your kids. And it probably did start when you guys were younger. That was the, you know, main focus. But I just know those middle school, high school years for our family, you guys were so involved in everything. It was just such a busy time.
Well, I mean, I think, number one, lack of communication. See, that wasn't a focus. Whether it's me, you know, checking on her, how are you doing? Is there anything I can help you with, or vice versa? My focus was trying to make the best living that I could for our family. That was my focus. 100% my focus.
To provide.
That was my focus. And I had an arrogant attitude when it came to my marriage. I thought my marriage was untouchable. And therefore, there were hedges that I basically let Satan cut down so he could attack. And that comes from a place of arrogance. I never in a million years would have thought what would happen would have happened.
Yeah.
I never did. And, you know, I wasn't focused on her the way that I should have been.
So, go ahead.
I was going to say, I agree with the communication on my side, because as a mom, you can feel very overwhelmed and underappreciated. And you feel like everybody's asking you constantly, 24/7, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? Mom, I need this. Honey, I need this, you know. And you get to feeling now these are feelings. That doesn't make it true, but it's just how you can feel. Very underappreciated, and I never voiced that. And I know if I would have voiced it, he would have done anything and everything he could so that it didn't feel that way. So communication is huge.
So we're going to take a short break for me to talk about the new devotional that I've written called Creation in the Beginning. It is a 90-day devotional through the book of Genesis. If you've never read through the whole book of Genesis, I highly encourage you get this. It's 90 days. We don't go over every scripture, but we go over a lot, and then we break down the text. I love the perspective because I love stories. And so it's from a storytelling perspective where we look at characters, the drama, the plot, what's going on, how are characters changing throughout the story of Genesis. And the key topics that I really hit on is God's character. We learn about his nature, his character. We learn about human depravity, you know, the fallen nature of man, how it influences our decisions, and relationships, family relationships, friend relationships, relationship with God, things like that. The last one is the importance of the intimacy with God, especially when you look at the story of Joseph or Abraham. Even Adam and Eve and different things like that. So you can order this on Amazon. You just type in Creation, and you'll probably need to type in my name, Carley Rains, and it should pop up. This is what it looks like. I will say the second book, the 90-day devotional through Exodus, is coming out this December. I'm super excited. It's called Deliverance: Escaping the Bondage of Egypt. And especially with the Christmas holiday coming up, we are paralleling a lot of the story of Egypt and Exodus with the birth of Christ. And we're going to talk a lot about that. So if you want to learn more about the Bible and be more consistent in your reading of the Bible, be sure to check out these resources. They're available to you today. So since you know, clearly y'all are still together. And we're going to kind of get into this, but y'all talked about personal experience, but since healing from the affair, like what do y'all, are there, I don't want to say red flags, but what are there tendencies that people unknowingly shift their priorities in that you see within marriages today that are different than what y'all have said, or that are the same? Like, help the audience understand, like, this is what you need to look out for. Like, these are, how should they, sorry, I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but how should their priorities be? And then what do we as humans struggle with misplacing our priorities?
I'm probably not going to be able to answer your question exactly the way that you asked it, but I think the number one key thing is communication. You have to have constant communication, and you have to be open and honest when that communication's being had. So if I ask your mother a question, she needs to be honest in her response. If she's struggling with something, she needs to come to me and say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. It may not have anything to do...
And you not get offended.
It may not get offended, right. It may not have anything to do with marriage. It may just be life.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we're each other's best friends. I mean, this is the most important relationship that you're going to have on this side of heaven. That's it, the most important.
Yeah.
And I think, too, earlier Daddy said about hedges. That is super important when you go into marriage, to build hedges around your relationship. And that can be those hedges need to be built and they need to stay there. Examples of hedges is, especially nowadays with cell phones and social media and all of that, that is super important. A hedge that,
like boundaries.
Boundaries, yes. And when we say hedges, that's what we mean. Boundaries, yes. And even with children, you need boundaries where you still have your time, and your kids need to understand that your time. I do remember when we went through what we went through, you guys had a very hard time when we started to shift our priorities back to one another. You guys had a hard time because it was always all about you. So I just think in marriage, especially when you start having a family, that your children need to know that this comes before them.
And so the problem with social media is it paints this wonderful commercial on how well an individual is or a family is, and all it is a lie. You're getting a snapshot of the best of the best, right? And now we as people that are watching that, we have this image of this is this perfect family. Well, they're not. None of us are. They're all screwed up. Every family is screwed up. Nobody's perfect. But you Satan feeds that information to you and plants those seeds in your mind. And every time we go back and look at it, and we're constantly watering that seed, that is poisoning the way that we see things. Stop believing the commercials.
Yeah.
They're a lie. Everybody's screwed up. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, Dad. So, okay, y'all the priorities are getting off. We're still actively going to church.
Oh, yeah.
Every week we're involved. Youth group, youth camp, every Sunday we go to church. Do y'all feel y'all were spiritually growing?
No, you can't. No, absolutely not. There's no way you can be spiritually growing in your marriage going to crowd.
You can say hell, going to hell.
No, I was going to say something else.
That's a fitting statement.
I was going to say something else. I caught myself. No, we were not.
No. But
neither one of us were.
No.
Number one, if you're praying together every single night,
Yes.
neither one of you are going to be in that situation. That was not going on. We weren't doing Bible, we weren't reading the Bible together every night. If you're in the Word and you're praying every single night,
your hedges are up.
There's no, it's not going to happen. It's impossible for it to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Christ is the center, then that's one of
So no, our priorities were not where they should have been.
No.
Our priorities were elsewhere. That's why we ended up where we ended up.
It was hard to go to church. For me, it was
Even before
what?
Like you decided to make that choice?
No, during that.
Oh, during that.
Yeah, during that time. It was very hard. I stopped listening to Christian music because it was very convicting and I didn't want to listen to it was very hard to go to church. I still went, but there's no growth. No, but God tried to get my attention. during that time. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, Briston had his hands up, so
Oh.
I was like,
Oh,
should we
sorry.
stop? Like,
Yeah,
what's going
I was like,
on?
wait.
Okay, no.
Okay.
No, that's great. Okay,
No.
God tried.
Yeah, God tried to get my attention. I can recall a few different instances where people actually came up to me talking about how great it is to see Shane and I and how neat our story is, and just things like that would happen, and I would cringe. I think God was trying to say, hey, you got to get out of this. You got to get out of this. And I never listened, and so the explosion happened.
Yeah, I think too, like, because we're not married, we're brother and sister, but we're married to other people, and it's like when there's tension, like, I feel like the enemy so much leads you down a path of giving up in marriage in general. Like, when there's a problem, it's like all he wants you to focus on is the problem, and like what you're talking about, social media, comparing, the grass is greener on the other side, and makes you have thoughts of like, well, doubting and unbelief and all this stuff about your marriage. And for you to say people came up to you and was like, hey, I feel like that's God telling you, like, y'all still have purpose. Like, yeah.
It's so funny, or not funny, but I remember thinking to myself during that time, this has nothing to do with Daddy. Like, this has nothing to do, but that's just deception. That's just a lie. Like, it was like two totally different, like, it had nothing to do with him, nothing to do with y'all. I mean,
what you were doing?
Yeah, what I was doing. It was like living a double life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you were doing.
Well, I know.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly what you were doing.
But to have that mindset, I mean, that it had nothing to do,
Yeah.
It's a crazy mindset to have. Anyway.
So at what point, Mom, was like your breaking point? At what point, and when I say your breaking point, I mean, at what point did you, and we've talked about this, it wasn't like Satan, it wasn't like the Garden of Eden. It wasn't like he immediately said, oh, Eve, take this fruit.
No.
It was a slow temptation. It was a slow process. Mm-hmm. And from what we've seen statistically, a lot of affairs are a slow process of friends, or they work together, or there's some type of connection, not in a bad way. And then it kind of, over time, develops into this dependence, and then it turned, so talk about like the process.
I mean, you talked about stay on the straight and narrow, and if you take one step off, you're off. I even remember a couple of the first, I guess, messages. I was like, no, I don't do this. Like, my husband and I, we don't give out our phone numbers to the opposite sex. We don't. So, but then it just, over time, I don't know. I don't know what to say.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, no, that's good. I'm so glad you brought up Proverbs. I talk about Proverbs all the time on this podcast, so for you to bring that up, it's important.
Anyway.
Yeah, and I know from y'all's experience of like going through this, I feel like it's made Maverick and I, you can talk for yourself, but like personally, it's made me aware. Like, I feel like sometimes I'm seeing things and people might think, oh, that's no big deal. Like, that's so little, it's no big deal. And it's like, no, you don't understand. This can lead to a really big deal.
Right.
And so I think that's been beneficial.
Well, and that's Satan, the no big deal.
Yeah.
I can agree to some point, because at some point it's your insecurities of what happened. You're gonna push that on your significant other. So, like, you're gonna basically change the person that you fell in love with and change them into a totally different person.
Oh, no. I mean like if someone's like messaging the opposite sex on social media and they're like, oh, we're just friends, but they're married.
Right. You can.
Yeah, like I'm like.
I can pick that out, but if you take a step further, it's you can be controlling.
Yeah. Well,
So
yeah.
you can be good at picking it out, but then some things your insecurity is going to kick in, and it's going to actually not be
Well, it's going to be a trigger
not
for
be
you.
what
Yeah.
you think it is.
Well, and I think as like a married couple, like you have to decide like, okay, these are
those are your
our
boundaries.
Yes, like
Yeah.
this is okay. Like I'm fine with this, and then this is not.
Right.
Like communication, Dad. Coming back to communication.
Well, and I
if
think
you
it goes
decide-
back to communication. Like, your spouse should have access to anything
Yeah.
you have 24/7, whether it's your phone, your computer, whatever social you have, whatever emails you have, whatever phones you have.
Well, like
Total access.
I remember Briston when we first got married, and there was a guy who got hired in our same, like, we were in a house, you know, but our offices, and he was very much like, I don't want y'all like in an office, because it was rooms, so it wasn't like a regular office where it's like cubicles, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And he was like, I don't want y'all like in a room together, which there never should have been
Well, sure, that's
a reason,
boundary.
right? So yeah, and I respected that. I understood that.
That's like going to lunch with a coworker
Yes.
of the opposite sex, just the two of you. That's
Yeah.
something that should be a boundary. That
Yeah.
no, we don't do that. And it can be an innocent,
Yes,
Thing.
yes, because like Eve,
but it should still be a no-no.
yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Okay, so it was the slow process. Y'all started out as kind of like friends. Y'all worked in the school district together. You started out as friends, and then at what point?
I don't even know if you would say it was even friends.
Friends. Was it like a dependency, an emotional
I think
escape?
it was
Like what?
flattery. And flattery feels good.
Well, yeah, because you talked about like you feel pulled and overwhelmed.
Right.
So,
So you have to be in that. So you're in this, and this is why communication again is so important. You're in this where everybody's taking something from you, and you feel like nobody's depositing anything back into you, and then you have someone flatter you.
And Daddy's trying to provide for the family.
Yes, he is.
And your kids were selfish and wanting Mom to do everything. And
Has that changed? No, I'm just kidding.
Nah. Hopefully a little bit. But yeah, and so
It
this
just changed
flattery.
people.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
now
right.
he does it to his wife. Yeah. Okay, so flattery, and then it just like at what point?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does from your perspective, seeing the way he treated us, do you think that had an effect on your decision?
Sure. Well, of course it did. Because and that may be something you should say, that he knew you guys.
Yeah,
I mean,
he
he
did.
was a
I mean, he
coach.
was like
And
very
he
involved.
He
In our
liked you
lives.
guys, so of course it did.
Yeah. And so you talked about double-mindedness. So it was like, okay, this is my family life. Like, we're your family. So when you're with us, it was family. But then it was like, do you feel like it's kind of, well, it was selfish. But in those other instances, it was like, well, this is my, I don't know what you would call it. But you
Selfish.
separated the two and said, which kind of justified, if you will, your decisions of this is
I don't know if it could ever be justified.
right. I'm just saying.
But I don't know, what did it make me feel better
Yeah.
in my brain? I don't know. But I did separate it totally. One had nothing to do with the other, which is crazy.
yeah.
So
Okay, so flattery. So looking back, when that happened, do you think you should have immediately gone to Dad?
yes.
And communicated, hey, this is going on.
Yes.
This is how I feel. These needs aren't being met.
Even if it was, I mean, at some point, yes, I should have said, hey, you know, I've gotten into a communication with this person. It needs to stop, you know, and he would have
stepped in. Yeah.
Of course, I should have confessed.
You know, okay, I've talked about this a little bit. It doesn't say this in the Bible, but Eve in the garden, I wondered, because like James says, we are tempted by our own enticing desire. We're lured and tempted by our desires. And does the serpent or Satan, or do they play an effect? I do think so, but I think our flesh is tempted by our desires. And you're talking about needs being unmet. And I wondered, in the Garden of Eden, before the serpent ever talked to Eve, if he watched her. And he watched and was like, okay, you know, I see her. And he saw maybe a need met, or maybe a curiosity about the tree. Like Adam told her, hey, we don't need to eat this tree, but she's kind of like, you know, it says knowledge of good and evil, you know. And he watched her, and he kind of was like, you know, I think I can get her in this thing. And so he said, hey, you know, and it was kind of like this slow process. I know scripture doesn't say that, but it's like, I don't know, you know,
it just didn't happen one day.
Right, where he's like, hey, I feel like, and you know, it says he's the craftiest, he's crafty, he's the craftiest beast of the field, which means he strategizes, like he has a strategy. And I feel like what you were saying in marriage, like you can't ignorantly go through life without having a strategy and without like having an action battle plan, like,
or just putting it on cruise control.
Yeah, cruise. That's a good example. Cruise control. Yeah. Like you have to be attentive. Proverbs says you have to be attentive and you have to be aware of what's going on. And so that was really good. So you fall into adultery. You know, it's this very hidden thing, and it goes on for
just a few months. And then it kind of explodes. God told you multiple times, like you said, to confess or stop or, you know, do something. Yeah.
And then, but stubbornness. There was this. Were you afraid?
Fear. I think there was fear. There was,
So were you afraid like, what were you afraid of?
The unknown, I guess. Of what, if you did confess, what does that...
Like, what's going to happen? This is great, y'all. Okay, so it explodes. And a tiny town is like a firework going off. It explodes. We remember, it was a Wednesday. Yeah. And, I mean, Daddy, you can go into, because you found out first. You don't have to tell us how you found out. I mean, you can if you want to, but what led up to you discovering, like, oh, my spouse is having an affair?
So that Tuesday night, the Tuesday before, you know, basically the day before, I don't know, I'd been up there and Mom may have been taking a bath, and I was sitting in there talking to her, whatever, and on her phone, we shared an AOL account, okay? And on her phone, and she had the AOL on her phone. And I was just, while we were talking, just skimming through it. And I happened to click on the send message in the AOL. When I clicked on that send message, I saw this email address. It was a Gmail address that had, you know, her initials, the year she was born in. And I clicked on it, and I saw a picture of this dude. And I'm like, I didn't really see this. So anyway, I didn't say anything about it. Well, the next day at work, all day at work, that's all I'm thinking about. Something is not right here. There is something off. I kept thinking about it. And that Wednesday night, I asked her. And I said, hey, Jill, you know, how many emails you have? I only have 2, AOL and the one at work. Then explain this. And that's, of course, she denied it and denied it and denied it. She kept denying it. Of course, she grabbed the phone out of my hand, deleted it, kept denying it. I knew something was going on. So she goes on to bed, y'all go to bed, and I grab the iPad and I sit down in the living room I remembered what that email address was. And only by the grace of God, I was able to get into that email account. Once I got into that email account, I mean,
It's over.
everything that was said, everything that was done, communicated back and forth, I saw it all and read it all. And there was no denying it then.
So you did that Wednesday night.
Yep, that was Wednesday night.
Yeah, he called us
'Cause-
in the living room about 11 o'clock.
That's right.
But we had left.
Yeah, you left.
So he called a meeting at 11 o'clock
Before we left or after?
before we left, and I was like,
No. Okay.
no.
From
hold
what
on,
I
hold on,
remember-
hold on.
That's not what happened.
Hold
This is
on.
what happened.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I found out. And of course, we're up there, you know,
Screaming.
I lose my ever living Jesus, right?
Yeah, y'all are yelling.
Yeah, okay. And I think
You called us downstairs.
yeah, but I
We
think,
had left.
but
That's
no,
after.
hang on, no.
Yeah, I promise.
It was
That's after.
after.
He's 100%
I'm
correct.
right.
That's after.
It's after.
We, and I
We
wanted
left.
her. I wanted her to confess who it was. I already knew who it was, but I wanted her to tell me who it was. And she wouldn't. And she said, "Let's go take a ride." So we got in the car and took a ride. Then we came back, and I went up and woke y'all up and brought y'all downstairs and told y'all.
That is not what I remember.
And y'all left. Y'all left.
Yeah, because you ran up to your room, I ran up to mine. I started breaking everything in my room,
Well,
throwing stuff.
I remember y'all were fighting.
Yeah,
I
that was
had
after.
homework.
That
I had
was after.
homework. I was doing homework. Maverick went to bed. I had to get something from my room, and I was writing an essay downstairs. Which this don't really matter. But I was doing an essay downstairs. And I go upstairs, and you keep asking Mom, "What is this?" And she's like, "Just hand me the phone, and I'll explain." And y'all repeated that like 20,000 times.
Yeah.
And I went downstairs, and I texted the guy I was dating at the time, and I was like, I think my mom cheated on my dad. But you had never told us yet. And then at one point, you come crying down the stairs.
Y'all were in the bed asleep. I woke y'all up, brought you down.
Well, no,
Told
he came
both of
crying.
you.
Okay.
And then y'all left.
And then we left.
And then I went up to
We
my
left
room.
a note.
No.
No.
You left.
We
And
just
then about
left.
an hour later,
Yeah,
I knew where
I
y'all
wrote a
were.
note. I said, we're
I
going
didn't.
for a ride.
I didn't.
We'll be
broke-
back
I
later.
broke stuff in my room, and then you came and got me.
Anyway.
Okay,
details,
anyway, that don't matter. That's a
That's-
tangent. Okay, anyway. So, guys, this explains just what y'all are seeing. This explains why repeated stories in the Bible might have different accounts. Great point.
Yes.
Because even our memory is a little off. But it's the same message, okay? So, you find out we don't go to school for like 2 weeks.
No,
You
it
pulled
was-
us.
It was a week.
Oh, a
So
week.
you're
Okay,
right.
okay.
I didn't-
Yeah, we don't go to school for a week.
Nope.
You pull us out.
I sure did.
We kind of house hopped,
Yep.
stayed at our pastor's house, whatever. Mom, I mean, you kind of stayed in your room. Dad, y'all can go into detail about this. Like, y'all can explain it better. But immediately, what was your reaction? Was your reaction like, we're getting a divorce? Like, what was
Well, yeah,
what was
that
y'all's
was-
reaction?
That was my immediate reaction. Absolutely. It was.
Is when you're getting a divorce.
Yep. That's why you don't make decisions when you're emotionally strong.
Great point. Great point. And what were you thinking, Mom? I mean, like,
didn't know. I didn't. I don't remember a lot from the initial weekend. I just remember I didn't know if I'd be staying or going or.
like from the house.
So.
Okay. And so, at what point? Because you say we're getting a divorce, so we weren't there. But at what point did y'all start to talk about working it out?
Oh, that was on down the road, Gar. That was
Well,
several.
the church came.
Yeah,
Valentine's
like
Day.
explain. Because this happened in February.
Actually, I think I was wanting to leave, and you were the one initially that said you're not leaving. We're gonna get through this.
Probably so, yeah.
The first week or so, y'all weren't around.
Yeah, we weren't
Y'all-
around.
We had a community that took you in. We had, You know how it says it takes a village to raise a child, and our village did what they needed to do. They took y'all in. I think what I can recall is I was leaving, and Daddy in that first week was like, "No, we're gonna work this out."
Did you want to
leave? I didn't know what I wanted.
Did you want to work it out?
I think honestly, I was on the fence. Mm-hmm. We had word. I mean, things were said that you can never take back. But the elders of the church that very first Sunday, I don't know if y'all even remember this. We were home. We didn't go to church, and the doorbell rang, and I was upstairs, and Daddy opened the door, and I heard voices, and I was not a happy camper. I did not want to come downstairs. It was the elders and their wives, and the guys took you outside, right?
Yeah, we left.
You left, and the girls sat, the wives. And I remember I was sitting in someone's lap in my, that big chair in the living room, and something changed. Like I knew I was supposed to stay. Now, I'll preface that with, I was not repentive yet. I was sorry I got caught, but didn't understand the devastation that I had caused. But I remember sitting in a particular woman's lap, and I don't know if it was something she said or what they said, but it was like
a switch.
Like, we're gonna do this. They came back, and we, in front of the elders and their wives, okay, we're gonna do this, and they promised to help support. We're gonna be there. But it's funny because as soon as I said I was staying,
Daddy,
he was, I think even that night we had anyway, but it was like Satan was like, okay, well, she's staying, but watch this, Daddy was out the door. So but
so y'all start
slowly.
Well, I'm gonna say this first. Yeah, slowly building your marriage. Slowly. Took years. I'm glad we did not see everything. I'm glad y'all removed us from certain scenes, and because I think that would have traumatized us more. We saw enough, I think. We saw the I remember Dad seeing you bawl for the first time. That was
the first. That's the
that was
first
like
and only time I've ever seen Dad cry.
To see your dad bawl, is like,
that's
holy crap.
Yeah.
Like, it is like your dad. I'm gonna start crying right now. But your dad is the one thing.
It's like Superman.
Yeah, he's like the strong tower of your family. So to see him cry is like, I think it wasn't good. I shouldn't say the word good, but you cared. Yeah, and anyways, just to see your dad cry, that was. But Dad, I will say, and I've told so many people this, to see you stay and forgive Mom and to work out your marriage when I feel like you had a right to leave has really made an imprint on our lives. Like, at that moment, I was like, I have a really awesome dad. And I think for most of my life, I don't think I recognized that. Because I mean, that's horrible for me to say, but I don't think I did. I mean, I knew you, and you were a great dad, and it wasn't anything you did, but I don't think I saw you, and that's my problem, but I don't think I saw you as the man who you really were until you worked it out with Mom. And then I was like, okay, my dad is the stuff, my dad is if I got any issues, I'm going to my dad, I don't know. It really made an imprint on my life and how I saw you as a dad. And I don't know if you want to say anything, Maverick. No? Okay. I don't want to you can interrupt anytime.
Okay.
But So y'all slowly worked it out. This was years.
Yeah.
And I mean, y'all took a week, went on a cruise.
Okay.
Which I don't know if that's good or bad.
I remember y'all coming back and it was like silence. I was like, I don't know if the cruise was a good.
Well,
I think that
here's
one
the
was a
deal.
good
Here's
idea.
what we learned through all of our studies we did and all of that. We needed to remove ourselves from the area. I mean, don't you agree? That was a necessity, like to remove ourselves from any influences, Don't know that going on a cruise was the smartest. The smartest. But I want to say, remember, it took me, about 5 weeks until
you were repentive?
Yes. Until Holy Spirit got a hold of me. I remember in the bathroom because I was crying and just devastated, and it was like the scales came off, and I knew at that point that he just revealed, and I was so repentant at that point. But it took several weeks. So like I said, just because I was sorry at first that I got caught, but then Holy Spirit got a hold of me in our bathroom, and the scales, the scales were removed, and I could see at that point the deception that was brought on me and that I believed. But yeah, it took 5 to 6 weeks.
There were consequences, which we're going to go into, but there were repercussions for what had happened.
Yeah, sure.
With Maverick and I, you lost hair.
Huh. Not enough.
Not
huh?
enough. I was wanting it all to fall out.
I did. I lost hair.
I wanted it all to fall
Hair
out.
came out in chunks. The stress.
yeah.
No, they're.
What was the stress? Was it what other people would think?
No,
was
I
it
just
between
think
y'all's
it-
marriage?
I think it was a combination
of all of it.
Yeah, the stress that trauma puts on a body, even for y'all. I mean,
Yeah.
we were all, and I
Affected.
think this is what makes reconciliation so hard in this aspect. It is so traumatic when infidelity happens, and hard, and us humans, we don't like hard, we don't like hurt, we don't like, so I believe that's why so many marriages they don't reconcile, because of the trauma, and the healing process itself is just so difficult. I mean, you guys know that it took years for.
Yeah, and the sad thing about that is, I mean, even just because they think they go their separate way, they still have all that hurt that they have to deal with. So ending the marriage doesn't remove the hurt. I mean, all you're doing is basically giving up and not dealing with what had happened.
That's good.
So when you carry that into another relationship, now you're carrying all this baggage into another relationship, and all it does is compound.
Yeah.
The hurt's going to be there regardless.
Yeah.
So, you have to weigh the cost. Well, I mean, are you willing to stick it out and truly, truly heal and restore? Or are you wanting to throw the towel in because it's getting tough? Because it's tough. It's going to be tough regardless.
Yeah. And y'all went through counseling.
Well, yes.
Well, we started y'all in counseling right
Yes,
off.
We
Yeah,
went
that
through
might have
counseling.
been that was a horrible idea. All we did was play Uno. There was no talking about the situation. We got pulled from class and played Uno.
I will say, I don't
At
think
least that was for me.
I don't think we understood I don't think we understood how much it affected us until years later.
Oh, definitely.
Like,
yeah.
so I'm not saying y'all putting us through counseling was wrong. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, whether you immediately you have to go through some type of biblical Christian counseling. But I think, like, I had to go, like, and you said this too, you just can't think, okay, I'm going to immediately go through counseling, and then, because years later, stuff's going to get brought up, and you're stuff that you don't even think is like a trigger, and I think that's also when you have to go through like mentorship or counseling. Someone's got to walk you through that and say, hey, where is this coming from? It's from this trauma, you know, like, why are you responding this way? Because I didn't notice a lot of what I was dealing with until, honestly, I went to college. And then it was like, oh, I'm having these issues because of what was affected by.
Well, I think part of that, unfortunately, in our dynamics is we were so focused on we put y'all in counseling, but we were so focused on trying to stay together, especially while you were still at home. I mean, you were only home a year.
Yeah.
So we were so focused on keeping this together that, unfortunately, I don't want to say y'all got left out to dry, but what would you say?
Well, I mean, the focus had to be us.
Well, I agree.
I mean, it's.
Yeah,
It had to
That's
be
just
us.
the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, if it wouldn't have been us, we wouldn't be sitting around.
Yeah, we wouldn't be sitting at this table.
Exactly.
Like, looking back, it was hard, but I think so you read books.
Oh, so our
Go
journey,
through the journey of like what y'all, how did this healing process, like, what did you read?
all right, well,
go ahead.
like-
You can probably speak
yeah,
to it.
so, I mean, the first thing that I did is you have to be careful who you talk to about
good.
this, okay? And I'm not saying that people have bad intentions, but I was already vulnerable anyway. I didn't even know what was up or down half the time. And I didn't want somebody influencing me in a negative way that would impact my marriage. I wanted to talk to people who had my marriage best interest at heart. Not mine, not Jill's. And you have to be careful, because when you're communicating or discussing the issues, because you got to talk to somebody about it. There's no way you can keep this inside. When you're talking to real good friends or family members, their intentions are pure, and subconsciously they may be feeding you information
That they think is right. Yeah.
But it's not what's best for the marriage. If I'm wrong, I wanted somebody to tell me that, hey, you're wrong. You're wrong in this.
Do you feel like with best friends and family that they'll take sides?
Subconsciously, not
on purpose.
consciously,
Yeah.
but subconsciously. Yes, they will.
Yeah.
It's our human nature.
Yeah.
I would do the same thing with you guys. It's our human nature.
Yeah. So, okay, be careful who you talk to.
Well, I think, and then one of the first things that we realized was we have to get our relationship with the Lord, our individual.
Yes.
Because if we're not working on our individual relationships, we can't work on our marriage. I mean, the closer that you are individually to the Lord, the closer you're gonna go together, right?
Right.
The triangle. Closer. So that was huge. That's all I had.
Was your relationship with the Lord?
Yes. I didn't, and I'm gonna cry. I didn't talk to people. I didn't feel like I could. I didn't feel like I deserved to be able to talk to people. So I didn't. I have journals. I have stacks of years of just, that's all I had. So that's where I would lament my feelings and stuff was there, because I didn't feel worthy enough to be able to tell somebody. I mean, I put myself here. So, of course, God forgave me and loved me, and, that's where I got that comfort, was there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
So, Daddy, where did you go?
I mean, there was a guy in the community that actually
Did he reach out to
reached out to me that had gone through this. The outcome, unfortunately for him, is not the same outcome, but he knew the emotional roller coaster that I was about to experience for a very long time. Excuse me.
It's okay.
So that's key. That he played a key part. And anytime I was done, I would have my bag.
Daddy would pack his
and
bags.
I'd show up at his house.
And he'd send him back home.
He'd send me back home. He'd send me back home.
We can laugh about it now, but it wasn't a laughing matter back then. But
But, but yeah, I mean, you have to have people that you can talk to and express and trust that they're going to be honest with you, but in that honesty have your marriage best interest at heart, and not yours. And Mom's right. I mean, the relationship with the Lord, obviously that has to be first and foremost, but this journey was a very, very long time. I mean, you go through so many stages throughout this process.
Grieving, just like the grieving
Right.
process. There's stages.
Okay, so the last announcement that I have for this episode is our new mentorship program that is opening up. Enrollment is opened now. It is through our new organization called Stewards of Faith. If you are struggling or want to grow in your faith or in your finances this summer, this is a great opportunity for you. We provide 2 coaching areas, faith and finance, and you pick one. You can do both, or you can pick one. It is a faith-based community, so this is a community of believers. We will have monthly, once a month sessions where all of us will be together, probably on Zoom, just talking about, what we're growing in, our goals, our plans, encouraging one another, different things like that. And then once a week, you'll have a one-on-one call with me, and we will go through your triggers. What are you struggling with? I'll have kind of mentorship, discipleship guides to help you grow in these 2 areas. You're going to receive accountability and encouragement. We're going to set effective goals. We're going to make a plan for those goals in growing your faith. Where do you want to be at the end of the summer with your faith or with your finances? It is only $15 a month. Again, this is a great opportunity. So if you would like more information, go to www.carleyrains.com/stewards of faith. You can find out more information about the program, and you can also enroll there.
Yeah, so we individually worked on our relationship with the Lord. You have to individually. Together, we started watching. We made a commitment to one another that we would read every day and pray every day together and watch Jimmy Evans. At that time, it was Marriage Today. I think today it's called XO Marriage. But at that time, it was Marriage Today. So we would take 20 to 30 minutes every day, even if that was the only time we were in the same room together for that day, and we would watch an episode of Marriage Today.
So another thing leading into that was we came up with non-negotiables. And
Getting there. He still has them.
And these are, when you say non-negotiables,
These are rules y'all set.
These are ourselves that every day, one of them was to read through every day. So these are rules that we set for our marriage, that these are non-negotiables.
Yeah, so March the 14th of 2016.
Wow.
Non-negotiables.
So that was 2 months.
Whatever
a
it
month.
takes.
Whatever it takes.
That was our
like battle
theme.
plan.
Yeah,
Yep.
whatever
Yeah.
it takes.
So, and
That
we
was our
agreed upon it.
strategy.
We agreed upon them.
Yes.
And I mean, there's a list
Do you
of
want
them.
us to read a few?
So how
Yeah.
did y'all come up with that idea? Was
I-
it just
I don't even. God,
I have no idea.
out of the blue, or did y'all?
I don't know.
It could have been something we had watched maybe and
Yeah.
saw and said, okay, this is what we were going to do.
I think that's awesome because, like, just the armor of God, spiritual battle, Satan comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and it's like your hedges you're setting up.
Yeah.
Right.
So you want me to read
So
these?
this
Yeah,
was,
read like
Yeah,
some
month
key
later.
ones that
They're
you
all
think
key.
are.
Yeah, they
They're
were
all
all
key.
key. They
Just-
were all key.
just a
read-
handful.
Okay, read the first one. Look,
Yeah.
this one's important.
Okay, tithe first.
Okay. Now, why? If somebody's like, how the heck does tithing have to do with?
I'll tell you how. Because we started at our church right after, because this was a month after, we call it Revelation Day. So this was a month after Revelation Day. We had started the Blessed Life from
Okay.
Pastor Robert Morris
Yes.
at church. And so we were, I think, in the middle of the Blessed Life when we decided to do this. So that's why that was at the top.
So tithe.
Yeah, but tithe first. I mean, that's all that is showing obedience to the Lord,
That's right.
right? I mean, it's all His anyway. The only
Right.
thing He's asking is, hey, honor me with a portion.
And
It comes back.
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
go
didn't-
ahead.
No, I was going to say, and at that point, you have to remember, I've lost my job. So that's a huge one for us because we're down to one income with the same bill,
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
So tithe first. Sleep under the same roof and in the same bed. Be affectionate towards each other, even when you don't feel like it. No yelling when angry. Be honest about one's feelings. No walking away during a conversation. Pray together at least once a day. Read the Bible together at least once a day. No mention of divorce and no more talk about leaving. Tell at least one thing we appreciate about each other daily. No more heated discussions with children present. Don't keep feelings to yourself. Attend children's activities together. No taking wedding rings off. Frequent heart conversations. Permission to wake the other up at any time, day or night. Take walks together a few times weekly. Always have conversation after sex. Weekly date night. Monthly night away from the home. Quarterly marriage evaluation. Nightly homework takes priority over all other activities unless urgent. Morning devotion time's a must. And read this list daily.
It's good.
I have a question. How consistent were y'all with those daily tasks? Because, life does get,
Hectic.
busy and hectic
No,
sometimes.
we were consistent for years.
So did y'all hit that every day for years?
Well, hit it? No. Reviewed it? Yes.
Oh, okay.
Did we mess up? Of course.
Yeah.
That's like the 10 Commandments we should review every day.
Yeah.
But do we hit them? We messed those up daily, a lot of them,
Yeah.
right? But no, we reviewed it daily. But did we mess it up? Yes.
Well, yeah.
But we would always come back to it at the end of the day. So.
Okay, so
Good
I got.
question.
Yeah, that was a good question, Briston. That's my hubby right there. Okay, so that reminds me of Joshua. He tells them, he says, where should I start? He says, no man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life. Just as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not leave you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, for you shall cause this people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, being careful to do according to all the law that Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may have good success wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous? Do not be frightened, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. That reminded me of that because you're meditating on it day and night, and your way was prosperous, and your way was successful.
Yeah. And, if you remember, some of those have to do with you guys. like us making us priority over
Over
you.
Do you think that was a hard transition?
Yes. Well, yes, because my first instinct was always, unfortunately,
Us.
yes, it was a hard transition. And then, of course, the one in there that said attend kids' activities, that was super hard because of how
Everybody.
it happened and where, especially for Dad, because you talk about triggers, but it was something we needed to do. We had to do, we had to support you guys and be there. And, but yeah, so that was our list.
Y'all have been, it's been how many years?
8.
8
8
yeah,
years.
yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, Maverick, I want to ask us, how did it affect you? Like, one of the things that the themes of this podcast is how parents' decisions affect their children. And I don't know if do parents realize, like, how their decisions really do affect their kids, even as babies?
Unfortunately, I don't think in the moment like you're thinking that.
Mm-mm.
Most of the time, unfortunately, it's in hindsight. Like, because in the moment, you're just... parenting doesn't come... It comes with this manual, but it doesn't,
Yeah, it doesn't come with...
It's the hardest job you'll ever do. Adult parenting is harder than baby parenting. I tell you guys that all the time. But I don't think in the moment you're, like, thinking that this decision is really going to mess them up for the rest of their lives.
And then, and like, so how did it, Maverick, you can go first. What has it?
Was it done?
Yeah, like,
It
Mom's-
made me very insecure
about,
about
like, marriage?
marriage and relationships, and gave me very bad trust issues. Like, if I couldn't trust you for a second, I'm not gonna give you my time if I even sense that you're gonna
Do something.
do something wrong to me or y'all or
Was it just towards women, or was it towards anybody?
anybody.
And then,
I never had the same relationship with mentors of mine, as in coaches or teachers,
right,
or
okay, yeah,
it was strictly business. It wasn't, I'm not going to give you my
like personal.
self.
So it's kind of like you guarding yourself.
Yeah, I had a lot of walls that unfortunately my wife had to
Break
barrel
down.
through. But yeah, I think the biggest issue was the trust issues, and I would shut down. I never let what happened out of me until years later.
Yeah.
So
What were the positives of them working out their marriage?
if you truly love somebody, anything, and you love God, there's nothing that can
Stop.
break what y'all have.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I feel like negative. I'm trying to think negative. I was older. I'm not saying there weren't negatives. Because there were.
You were there for the beginning of the...
Yeah, I was only there for a year, so I didn't see a lot of what you saw, which I think positively guarded me from seeing
Maverick
more.
saw.
Maverick
He
saw
saw
a
the
lot.
struggle,
Yeah.
the
He
saw
years
the-
of the struggle. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't just...
And it was really hard of... Like, she was my everything. I'm a mama's boy, so... that relationship took a massive hit, to where a positive of what happened is this relationship became more of a relationship than it was
Prior.
prior.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like positively, it's like, it gives you hope. Y'all working it out gives you hope that no matter what happens on this earth, like the worst of the worst in a marriage could happen and you still not be defeated. And I think it's cool, Dad, because like a husband represents Christ and a wife represents the church, and she was the one to fall and you forgave her, you know? And it's like this perfect example of sacrificially what Christ has done for us. And so seeing that, I don't know, it's just like made my perspective of marriage. I feel like we can have more hope because y'all have left a legacy. Y'all talk about that all the time. You've left a legacy of like, you can do the hard stuff. Like, you can work it out and not give up. And I mean, it was, you don't see probably how much something happens until you're going through it. Like, after y'all had the affair, or you had, you know, y'all's marriage, and then, I mean, we saw it left and right. And it's like, this happens all the time with people in the church. And I mean, now I get upset when divorce happens, because I'm like, if my parents can work it out, you better sit your butt down and work it out, you know? Like,
well, again, I think it goes back to people. I mean, it takes years, and it takes work.
Yeah.
It takes, that's the thing. It takes, work. I mean,
yeah, you can't go around it.
You can't go around it. You can't go under it. You have to go right through it, and you have to hurt. You have to.
And it requires work. See, we didn't have really anybody walking us through this. I mean, 6-8 weeks after it,
we were on our own. Because people that have
it's
never,
a burden to people.
People that have never experienced it, it becomes a burden, you know, and they're no fault to them.
No.
But it is a burden. I mean, you can't go out to eat and be sure that something's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, he's not going to be triggered and we don't start this big argument. I mean, people didn't want to go out to eat with us. People didn't want,
I was too, I mean,
yeah.
Everything could be fine one minute and the next minute.
Which y'all know at home. Yeah. We could be fine 1 second and then it's like, what happened?
Yeah.
So, I would say, you know how we talked about doing our own Bible studies and relationship with the Lord. When we were doing our studies together, you have to do studies on the subject. You know, we would find anything and everything we could find on how to heal after infidelity. Christian studies. There's a lot out there. And we would work, you know, basically that's how we came up with, then the next thing from this book, they did it this way, so we're going to try what they did. You know, and that's how we read hundreds. We
did, but, you know, I think, you know, each time you do that, number one, you're you know, basically they're validating that you're really not crazy.
Yeah, because you feel crazy.
What you feel, what you're going through, your emotions, you're really not crazy. It's normal to have these type of emotions, and it also gives you hope, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it just gives you hope. So, and it also kind of puts things in perspective. There was, I don't remember the name of it because it's been so long ago. Maybe you remember, but they talked about how many days before you think it may last.
Yeah, there's
like
a
290 something days.
I remember. We were at one of your track meets, and we were reading this book. I remember. It had to have been hers. Maybe it was his. I don't know. But we were at a track meet and we had started reading this book, and I don't remember who wrote it
We read so many.
Yeah. But that's where we were at the track meet, because we would, whenever somebody would run, we would go to the fence and then we would go sit in the car because it was really fresh, like really fresh. So, but it was 294 days. We read
Something
that
like
and
that.
I was thinking that we were like on day 10, I think, like 10 days after. And when I read that, I thought, 294 days before you even
Think.
It can
that
work.
this is going to work. So that's almost a year. And I was like, and those first 10 days had been hell. I mean, y'all know.
Yeah.
Y'all know this much of the first 10 days
Yeah.
because you spend a lot of time not at home. But, so, yeah, it takes years.
Dad, you've brought this up. You brought up how Satan, you talk about getting off. You brought up how you had to take every thought captive.
Oh yes.
And you had to because Satan, your mind could get going, and next thing you know, you're angry and you're like emotionally like a firecracker, and you're just, do you want to say any more on that of how you had to really take every thought captive?
No, I mean I had to, I had to bring that, to the Lord, because it would consume everything if I didn't. And it's not easy to take those thoughts captive
Yeah.
and take them before the Lord, especially at the frequency it was happening.
The thoughts.
The thoughts at the frequency that they were happening. But over time, as you do that and you've been getting to heal, they become less and less. But that's the only way I could.
Yeah.
That's the only way I could manage.
Yeah. This has been good. So, legacy. Last thing. Y'all talk about legacy. Y'all have left a legacy for us.
For our grandchildren.
For your little grandchildren.
Do you? I have another.
Yeah,
question.
go ahead. Go
I have
ahead.
another
You're like the
question.
co-host over here.
So, do you think the move from Panhandle? Am I not supposed to say when it happened, or?
Yeah, let's not.
Okay.
Well, you just did.
Well, you can edit it out.
Okay.
that out.
So, from where it happened, the location where it happened, to where Dad got a new opportunity, do you think that was a major turning point? Because
From my perspective, a major turning point for us.
did it help? Like, did it take weight off of, because it was?
I'm not going to say that it didn't take weight off, but I'll answer your question this way. If we would have left Panhandle as soon.
Start over.
If we would have left the town that this happened in shortly after it happened, I don't think we would have survived.
Yeah.
Because that would have been us running from the problem
Yeah.
and not dealing
And we
with the
wanted to.
problem. Huh?
I said, and we wanted to.
Yeah, I wanted. Trust me, I wanted to, but we didn't. Thank the Lord, we didn't.
Well,
Do I think leaving and when the company transferred me to another facility, do I think that was there a burden lifted? Absolutely, there was. Absolutely. But we had gotten to such a good place.
We were 2.5 years.
Yeah. Not completely restored, completely healed, but gotten to such a good place.
Yeah.
And I think that's why God said, okay.
Yeah, it was kind of a
You
reward, I think.
you fought the good fight.
Let's
It's
take some
yeah,
pressure off, or
let's-
take some.
Let's take some pressure off. There was something else that I was going to say along those
I know
lines, too.
we've been asked before. When was the shit, like the major shit, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
like-
When was it from?
from
When was it from your battle is uphill to,
where
okay, we're finally at the peak, we can,
Descend.
Or-
make it easy, or
Okay.
well, marriage is not easy.
Okay, but
No marriage.
when was it?
We always say
We're finally over this.
there's no defining moment, because we've been asked that. It's just the work,
Just a lot,
the
yeah.
years. I mean,
It's healing. I mean,
the
I
healing.
can't.
I've always said for the last several years that the healing is like a scar. A scar is tougher than skin when you're scarred, right? Okay. But I know, because I've had several abdominal surgeries, I'm scarred. But I know those scars sometimes get tender. Like, they do. They get tender. And I tell people, you know, if you're truly healed, that doesn't mean at points, even talking tonight, it
It's
gets
not-
tender. But I'm still healed. We're still healed from what happened. But does it get tender sometimes? Well, sure.
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
good.
that reminder is always
there.
there. But we are healed,
We're healed and restored.
restored, and
Loving
better.
life.
better than we would have never said that our marriage would be better than it was prior. But it is.
Yeah,
It's more whole. It's more transparent for sure.
better. I think it's more appreciated,
Yeah.
more valued.
Well, thanks, guys. Do y'all have any final words? I mean, this
No,
was
it
great.
just takes time. That's the main, I think, key to get across is. And then, of course, now we have a passion to, you know, it says in the Bible
Yes,
somewhere,
yeah.
God comforts you
so
so you can be
comfort.
comforters. Yeah. And I think that rings so true. That our
gonna-
story is, I mean, we're here to now help others.
So, James, we're going to end with this. So, James, he says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith," and Dad, if you want to, you've said this, not on here, but you've said this.
Well, I was waiting for you to ask.
Oh,
but-
sorry, sorry. Well, this is perfect. The testing of your faith produces steadfastness, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. And you've talked about how what you went through was a testing of your faith.
Mm-hmm. And it let me know. I think that's the thing I'm most proud about. I mean, you know, I thought I had a lot of faith. I know I have a lot of faith. And
Yeah.
early on, I was completely led by the Holy Spirit, even though I may have at times been acting like Lucifer. Because of the decisions that I made in the moment were the right decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, it says, James is such a good book on this topic. But he goes on to say, you know, faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. And he says, was not Abraham, our father, justified by his works when he offered up his son Isaac on the altar? And you've talked about, like, you don't know how you're going to respond to something until you're in the situation.
That's exactly
And
right.
for Abraham, and you talked about how mom was like your, I don't want to say idol, because I think you working it out and forgiving her showed God was really your foundation. But like for Abraham, like Isaac was his everything. And for y'all to, I mean, you're doing what he did, you know, and how your faith says, and the scripture was fulfilled that says Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him as righteousness. You see that a person is justified by works and not by faith alone. I'm not saying you're saved by works. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But how, like, in the moment your faith is. Okay, last thing. Y'all talk about being patient. And he says, "Be patient, therefore, brothers, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, being patient about it until it receives the early and late rains. You also be patient. Establish your hearts for the coming of the Lord. Do not grumble against one another, so that you may not be judged." And like what y'all, I know he's talking about the coming of the Lord, but he goes on to say, "Behold, we consider those blessed who remained steadfast. You have heard of the steadfastness of Job, and you have seen the purpose of the Lord, how the Lord is compassionate and merciful." And like y'all's marriage, like y'all remained steadfast and you didn't give up. And you probably at times wanted to throw in the towel. And wanted to, but like the flower or the precious fruit was a healthy and successful marriage, and y'all waited for it, and y'all like continued to work at it. and y'all established in y'all's hearts your non-negotiables. So this is great. Yeah, so we just want to, I'm going to move this so I can talk to the camera. Is it still going, Briston?
Yeah, I'll be checking it.
Great. So we want to encourage y'all with this story. And if you have any questions, comment, reach out. They can help. Y'all have been counseling people, which is pretty awesome.
Yep.
And so if you have questions about marriage or your marriage, they've been through the fire. They can help y'all.
Yeah, we're not
Or
on
if
social.
They're not on social media, so just reach out to me and I'll get you to them.
Or
But
if you were a kid that went through it.
Oh, yeah,
you
that's
need
good.
the perspective
yeah,
of-
yeah. If you're a kid, I even think if you're a kid who maybe your parents didn't work it out, but if you're a
Right.
kid who,
because you're still gonna have
Yeah.
the same feelings, even if.
yeah, and there still is hope for your marriage,
Right.
even though your parents might have gotten a divorce. Like he says somewhere, I think, like your parents' sin isn't put on you, so God still has a purpose for your marriage. So thanks for watching this, and we'll see y'all on the next episode. All right, we're done. How y'all feel?